Initiate confessional sequence.
Forgive me, Father. I had the dream again. About the war. I have questions, doubts.
The devil comes in many shapes, many shapes, many shapes.
Man, y'all remember when vampires used to be pimps? You know, back in the day, I mean, maybe I'm a little old here, but you know, back in the day, they used to like.
Well, you think about like Blackula.
Blackula, that's what I'm saying.
Prince Mama Waldy.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
you mean
thinking of
literally pimps?
pimps. Yeah, literally pimps, man. They used to come in the room with their tux on and they elegantly draping their cape everywhere.
Oh,
Hair
so
all
they didn't
nice.
have like the big purple fringe hat? Is that what you're saying?
Some of them, I'm sure, did.
Hey, you know,
think
like the Count from Sesame Street, Stone Pimp.
Oh yeah, they made a widow's peak look good, or a crazy afro, shoes all shiny and everything.
I think
like.
I think I saw a few that were like they had that Zoot Suit Riot thing going on.
But you know, whether it be a cape or a fuzzy hat or a zoot suit, whatever, it had some style. You know, they would like come in the room and bitches just be damn. Please suck my neck. But today they're probably looking at this and like, what happened? You know, it's like today we got vampires that are either glowing, sparkly metrosexuals, or they're just animals, crazy rabid animals.
I blame Blade.
No, I blame 30 Days a Night.
I was going to say, yeah, you get your 30 days and
Well,
That was the
30
one
days-
that was
was that-
like, they're feral animals.
Yeah.
Don't you understand?
Well, that's where it started to evolve. But you have to give Blade some credit because even they had some vampires that were like the semi-zombie vampires that they couldn't even be around, that were stuck in that dungeon that you never saw.
Right, but
right.
they still had the sexy vampires were the main vampires. Like 30 Days a Night was the one who re-envisioned them completely as just like
feral
kind of
monsters.
somewhere between werewolves and vampires, really.
Well, I think what it's come down to is like we've already seen, like you say, the pimp vampires, but now these are their redneck ghetto country cousins that are finally surfacing.
Yeah, well,
they can only keep them hidden for so long.
I guess you're right. I guess because somewhere like Black will be sitting with the count, being like, "Where did it go wrong, man? Did you used to be beautiful? What happened?
Did you have sex with a maggot? Is this what these things
What
came
happened
from?
when we had style?"
Definitely some maggot rape going on.
Well, something had to have happened. Something had to have happened because this is supposedly the future. Oh yeah, no wait, it's the Wild West. No wait, it's the future. No, it's the Wild West.
Now, Cyrus, you know when an apocalypse comes, everything reverts back to the old
does,
West.
The
yeah.
post-apocalyptic
Mad Max
West.
is all over.
Anything.
Yeah,
It goes
that's
back to
true.
the old West.
Yeah, we're talking about the style of vampires, and now we're talking about the apocalypse and talking about how we have a mishmash of different genres, because that's what this movie all is. I mean, one of my biggest problems with this is that it takes so much. And it either takes a lot and puts it together in one big bowl to where it just becomes mush and is nothing, or it just takes things and changes it so much that it's not recognizable. Mainly the vampires here.
It wants to be everything to all geeks, and the problem is that it doesn't have a sense of humor about it.
Yeah, the other thing is, it is. I mean, I saw hints of like Blade Runner, Alien, Judge Dredd. I mean,
The Matrix, Mad Max, Equilibrium,
Blade. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was throwing it all together in there, and there's nary a chuckle that's intentional to be seen.
See, I saw it as a combination of like Unforgiven and Legion, especially because we were just talking about this. Leon and I was looking this movie up because I was saying, who directed this? Because it reminds me of this movie Legion that we saw with Paul Bettany. It turns out the guy who directed this movie, Scott Charles Stewart, directed Legion. That's why we have Paul Bettany in this film.
Hey, I'll
Right.
go you one better. Paul Bettany, he's playing these two religious, fighting dudes. You go back to the Da Vinci Code where he was the crazy
That
religious
albino?
albino.
He's clearly got some issues with the organized church, but he's still really into God. Clearly. I mean, this is his thing. He's like,
love-hate
here's what we're
relationship.
going to do. We're going to create sci-fi horror movies where the church is the bad guy, but somewhere in there, there's still God.
That is true.
Great. It'll be a whole new church.
We're going to create movies that really no one's really going to go see. You know?
Yeah, no, it's I'm talking about the movie takes it and makes it just a big mess, but that's not entirely true. I mean, there's so many things, so many genres and things that it borrows from that they put in this movie that some of it can't help but be cool.
Yeah, that's true. There are moments that I was like, wow, that was actually pretty neat. I got to hand it to you. And then they say something and screw it all up.
It's every piece of dialogue that's like taken from Sunday school where you're like, okay, you're trying to make that sound cool? Okay.
Well, part of the problem is you've got
you're
Cam-
taking a hymn and trying to make it badass. Only Samuel Jackson could pull that off.
You've
I'm
got
sorry.
Cam Gigajet, how do you say his name?
Giganet or
who
something?
is one of the worst screen actors working. I couldn't believe the way he's delivering these lines. I mean, sure, it's supposed to have a Western flair to it or something, but you're like,
Oh yeah,
I can
What are
believe
you
it only
doing?
because he does that in every movie I've seen.
yeah, he's horrible.
Yeah, he's been in quite a few films.
He was
where
in Burlesque.
Yeah.
And The Roommate.
Every time we see him in something, we go, God, I can't believe this guy. So who is this guy? And we always forget that it's that same
Yeah, he was
guy.
in The Roommate. He was in Easy A. He's in one of your favorite movies, Don't Back Down.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where he first appeared. This movie he plays a sheriff. Speaking of characters that are in this movie, so Paul Bettany, we're talking about the religious figure that he is in this film. He played,
Super priest.
He's super priest.
Now he's from an order of super priests.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this movie is set in a world where you have this order of clerics who are just like super priests, as you said. I mean,
They literally, when they get the calling, their mutant powers manifest.
They
pretty
get that
much.
calling, and God hits them so hard in the head with a fucking cross that it just sticks right there.
Yeah,
There's
it
a
does.
mark on their head. But they are like ninja priests because they came in and saved the world, at least humans, from extinction at the hands of these feral vampires.
Maggot vampires.
The maggot vampires. But here's the deal. Once they saved humanity, it was like the church had no more use for them.
Well, they're like special ops, Vietnam fighter, veterans. Where like, okay, the war's over. It's over, Johnny. It's over.
Yeah, this is the movie's
Nothing's over.
movie's attempt at a political subtext.
You see the priest out on the corner with cardboard signs. I'm a former cleric. I saved the world. Please give me a dime. That garbage man now. They're mopping the floor at the restaurant. I mean,
Yeah, they literally are. The one character's like, I'm in waste management.
yeah, seriously, she's a garbage woman. Yeah.
Usually when somebody says waste management, that means they're in the mob. So maybe
That's true.
maybe she was part of the mob.
That bitch is taking out trash. She's taking out our recyclables, but no. So once they're through with them, they just don't seem to fit in within this post-apocalyptic society that they have, and it's kind of a post-apocalyptic society because humanity has to like put walls around their cities where the church rules. I mean, the church is. We said the city is like Blade Runner. It's a bunch of neon, tall buildings and towers, and every one of them has like a big cross on it. And in the middle of the day, they have to make an announcement like, they got to remind you, going against the church is like going against God. We're pretty much God, so don't fuck up. And
Yeah, it's like driving through downtown Oklahoma, except with skyscrapers.
You know, it's funny. It's like, as much as like I'm the guy who should probably appreciate this kind of
I know.
sci-fi.
I was thinking
this kind
Sarah's supposed to be loving
this
this.
kind of dystopian future. I was just laughing. I was like, come on.
You be the first one to die in this
Come on.
utopia.
You would.
Hey, man,
It's like I think organized religion is pretty, runs itself into the ground and hurts a lot of people, but this is going a little far.
Cyrus would be hung upside down in his underwear right in front of the
you
city.
say that, but if we were close to getting wiped out by vampires, people would turn to the church.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
hey,
to that degree.
they got all the crosses. We
Yeah,
gotta go to
but
them.
you know how people are. They're like, yeah, but what have you done for me lately?
Hey, man. And we sell you out quick. I was talking all that shit. I'm with
That
you.
wasn't us. Our site's always been pro
No, because here in this movie, it's like it's almost as if the Vatican bought the Empire State Building, and everybody in New York had to stop in the middle of the day and say thank you to the Pope, and they let it known all around the city. So you have Paul Bettany's, who is just called priest, and he gets a message from somebody who's saying, "Look, your niece Lucy has been kidnapped by these vampires, and we don't know how they kidnapped her or who's heading this up, but we just thought we want to let you know." And so he has to go to
What's the sheriff that tells him?
Was it the sheriff?
It's a sheriff who's been
Giganet?
dating. Cam Giganet.
Giganet, yeah,
He's a sheriff who's been dating his niece and says like, look, my girlfriend, your niece or whatever she is to you, has been kidnapped. I'm going after her. Thought you might want to know, so you can come along with me.
Yeah.
You're not coming. Gosh. I was really hoping you were coming because you got more skill than I do. All right, fine, dude. Fuck it. I'll just go on my own.
Yeah, well, once he gets this news from this young sheriff, he has to go to the church. who in here is headed by Christopher Plummer.
And anytime Christopher Plummer's ahead of something,
he's evil.
yeah,
He's not a good guy.
I haven't
either
seen
him or
that
Max
guy.
von Sydow.
I haven't seen that guy in such a long time. I thought he was dead. Actually, I was like, "Oh, that guy's still alive and kicking. Good for him."
It's just because we just saw him in The Sound of Music, and we were like, "Wow, that guy's
That's
still
right.
alive."
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
actually, we saw him in a movie where he was somebody's gay dad. He was Ewan McGowan's gay dad.
Beginners or beginnings, whatever it was.
But anyway, yeah. But you're right. If he's somebody's dad, he's gay. If he's heading up something, he's evil.
He's somebody's daddy's gay. The plumber rule.
No, he was Diane Lane's dad, and they almost went out on a date together.
He was on
He's still
in the
gay.
closet. Yeah, he was on the DL. Come on now. But Christopher Plummer is telling him, like, look, man, we can't rouse these people up by letting them know that there's vampires going crazy. We put them on a reservation. How you put animals on a fucking reservation? I don't know, like Indians or something. But anyway, yeah, but they're on a reservation. They would never cause trouble. It's going against the church. It's heresy to say that vampires are around, so we forbid you to go after your niece. And he's like, fuck it. I'm super priest. I'm going to do what I want to do. So, and that's where the movie kicks off. It becomes a mission of him going to find his niece. And it's at this point that the movie, with all the great ideas and set pieces, because it is sort of a cool mishmash of a science fiction horror monster movie western.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, this is setting this up pretty cool. But Cyrus, you're right. You could take every character in this movie, fold them up tightly, put them in an envelope, and mail them for cheap because they are flat.
Oh, yeah.
They have very, I won't even say it's bad dialogue. It's just dialogue that's just very average, and they have no real emotion. They're just there to serve a purpose for a typical action film.
No, it's dialogue you've heard in every other movie like this, which is kind of sad. Where I'm like, okay, wow, did anybody bother to really like type a script up, or just like, what's the last like cool like action genre film you've seen, and like just say something cool around the, just being a badass. And
They lifted every Western cliche they could find that was like so cliched that even 8-year-olds know them, and said them like they were serious. Not a trace of irony or tongue in cheek about it. And when you got somebody like Cam, I can't act, or trying to do lines like that, you're like, stop.
Yeah.
But then again, some of the action choreography is actually pretty fucking cool. So it'll go, stop talking, and oh look, there's a vampire. Cool, so something cool's gonna happen.
But you know what? As cool as that was, I still didn't find it all that impressive, only because I still felt like, this is stuff I've kind of seen before. I've actually seen it better in Blade, as far as action scenes go.
Sure. Yeah, no question.
It's not nearly as good as all the movies it's taken from. I mean, it's trying to blend all these things together like in one big melting pot, but it's just more of a stew where all the pieces still remain separate. And hey, it's not like it tastes bad, but it's just not what they were going for. What I have to praise this movie for, because certainly the negative things is the dialogue, and the action sequences weren't as impressive as I thought. And yet with this director, he did a good job with the music, the tension, the setup, the look of it, to where all the setup to the action I was fully invested in. I was like, I'm feeling this. I'm ready for it.
I did find myself digging the music.
And then the action sequence that happened, I was like, I was hoping that'd be better. Well, there's still more to come.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you, one of the things that made me start to like this about halfway through, though, was that, and this comes from having watched a lot of the Corman sci-fi stuff from like the 70s lately, totally reminded me of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from the motorcycles, the jet motorcycles they were riding.
Just riding a jet engine with wheels on it.
It was fucking Warriors of the Wasteland. It felt like we were watching that again, but with vampires. I was like, you know what? This guy has definitely like watched a lot of those and loves them, and he doesn't get it right per se, but it's got that same sort of, fucking it's Saturday afternoon. I got nothing else to do. I'll watch this.
That's true. See, I thought I was getting that cool Megaforce movie that I wanted when I first saw that movie. Yeah. But see, I think this movie does itself a big mistake by, in the opening credits, or even before the opening credits, or just the opening of the movie. This is based on a graphic novel. But I'm gonna try and say the guy's name because it's more like a manga. It looks like because it's a Japanese.
Is it even
artist.
Japanese? I thought it was like Indonesian or Thai.
No,
or
well,
something
the
like
guy
that.
who does it is named Hang Min Woo. So but if you see some of the, and I don't know if I said that right, but if he looks Japanese, and if you look at the comic, it's either manga or has a great manga influence. And the opening of the film isn't quite like that. We were talking about how it kind of looks. Did you see the opening? The animated opening?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because co-host, he didn't get a chance to see that part. It was really cool. It kind of looks like just a slightly cheaper version of that animated sequence that we saw in the last Harry Potter movie. What was the last Harry Potter movie?
Deathly Hallows.
Deathly Hallows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It totally reminded
Where
me.
they illustrate the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
I kept hoping they'd go back to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Well, the
Do
thing
more
is,
stuff with it.
it's one of these movies where like, don't if you're going to see this movie, don't go late because you want to see that animated opening because there's so much story in that first 5 minutes of that opening. Then you get to the actual movie. And there's not that much.
But the beginning of it sets up, it says there was this war between humans and vampires. The humans were about to be extinct, and then the super priest, the ninja priest came in and took over, but somehow they were shunned by society when it was done, and they show all this war and tanks and all these vampires ripping people apart. And I'm like, I want to see that fucking movie.
Yeah. It's basically like the Clone Wars all over again, where you hear about this great thing, you get some imagery, and you're like, can I like see that? Can I like see that in live action? No, I can't. I got to see it in a fucking cartoon.
Even when the live action starts, it's like a live action prequel as well, as we see during the war, Paul Bettany and Carl Urban getting dragged off almost immediately, where half your audience who's less experienced goes, well, that's weird. They only got Carl Urban for this one scene.
and the rest of us go, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's how flat these characters are because Paul Bettany, he's a priest. He's called Priest. Carl Urban, his character is called Black Hat. He wears a black hat. You know, that's pretty much all you need. And he's a bad guy. Brad Dourif is in the movie. He's a salesman. That's his character, salesman, in the credits.
Now wait, that's what they call him credits because they don't give him a name.
Yeah. I think that's just they're never named in the film.
Nobody ever refers to him.
Let me criticize this movie.
Wow.
I want to talk shit.
Don't give the movie unfair knocks.
I do give them credit for using Brad Dourif only because that guy's been in every like generic sci-fi or like just actual like big budget sci-fi
voice of
movie
Chucky.
you've ever seen. Yeah, of course.
It wouldn't have felt complete if Brad Dourif hadn't made an appearance.
Yeah, even though when I saw him, I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to be actually something like cool. Because usually, even if the movie's bad, like he was in Dune, at least that was somewhat interesting, you know.
Yeah, and actually, he's a very small role in the movie, but he has some character. Maggie Q comes in later in the movie. She's like the badass priest female, and you know she's one of the few characters that I like because we didn't have to see a whole lot of development in her, but she comes in and does a lot of badass stuff. And so I was like, this is okay. You're not trying to set me up with some heavy characterization here, and I don't have to. She comes in like 3/4 in the film. Mm-hmm. I like this. I mean, if the movie I think had tried to be a little more fun and tried not to set up such a heavy story in the beginning, maybe I could take it as just it's a fun action film.
Yeah, the interesting thing about her character and the guy who Carl Urban.
Yeah,
it's amazing to see those two who have barely like any real lines or any real backstory. How just their acting, they seem like they should have bigger stories because those were the two characters I was really interested in as well.
You know what, Carl Urban, his character. Not to give away a whole lot, but he is the main villain in the movie, and he talks about certain conflict that he has. And even Paul Bettany talks about a certain conflict that he has. But those two guys, when they're in the scene to get together, they are trying to out Eastwood each other. They're trying to be Clint Eastwood. It's like, okay, it's bad enough one of y'all trying to do this, but both of y'all trying to do like rivalry Clint Eastwood impressions. It's like y'all ain't even doing it.
And Carl Urban kept on looking like he was like about to do a photo shoot for the Stephen King Dark Towers.
Church teaches us that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And since vampire evolved without eyes, it is a soulless creature to be eradicated. And I have seen the soul of the vampire. And let me tell you, it is far more pure than that of any man. Now you ask me what I am. I am the bringer of the tide. I am the wave that will wash clean this unclean world. And you and your priest will help me do it.
I think you nailed one of the biggest problems with this film for me, which is that it wanted so desperately to reflect all these Western-like things that it just felt sandwiched into a post-apocalyptic horror plot. You're like, come on, man, did you really have to squeeze in like the big train, let's take the train sequence? I mean, come on. Like, yeah, that's a Western cliche. Yeah, we get it. All right, you don't have to does the guy have to be wearing a duster and a black hat? Seriously?
Yeah. You bring up a good point because I can forgive the train sequence because that train, what happens, what they do with the train, the stunt with the train,
Yeah.
I thought was the best action sequence of the
No,
whole
you're
thing.
right, you're
I mean, it dropped my jaw. And a movie where I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of sleepy. I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
that
And
was
even
awesome.
with the, and they did things not just with the train, but they had those guys on like the bikes,
Yeah.
who were like chasing them while the train was
That's
going.
when I was laughing. I was like, okay, now you're sandwiching in the Mad Max stuff. Why are they riding motorcycles?
Yeah.
Why were there even motorcycles on the train?
See, I was getting hints of Fast Five watching that scene.
Yeah, you know what? I thought about that too.
Yeah.
But you're right about him wearing the duster.
Yeah.
It was like, look, these other things, okay, have you seen them sort of quasi-Western post-apocalyptic, movies before? But the Western, wearing the duster with the big cowboy hat.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Well, you
Hey,
know,
man,
if you-
Duster's a badass, all right?
He looked good in it. Don't get me wrong, but
No,
Yeah.
the duster, the whole lone guy with no name coming in being Clint Eastwood. If you close your eyes, there's a scene where Paul Bettany and Carl Urban are like having a bit of dialogue. It's like, leave her alone. Oh, you didn't know that's your daughter. And it's like, if you close your eyes, you won't know who's who.
man,
You
it's
know?
a good thing they didn't bring in Timothy Oliphant and Christian Bale.
Can you see those guys saying yes to this film at this point in their career? I don't think
Hey,
so.
Timothy Oliphant was just in I Am Number 4, so you never know.
Yeah, I guess
They should
that's
have a
true.
game show. I'm Clint Eastwood. No, I'm Clint Eastwood. I'm Clint Eastwood.
Where
Goddamn
the
it.
real Clint
Then Clint Eastwood
please
comes up
stand
and nobody, that's not Clint
The
Eastwood.
real Clint Eastwood is the one that grabs you. You motherfucker, I'm Clint Eastwood.
Well,
it's him.
Clint Eastwood lately, he's it's like that's guy he's got to be the real one because couldn't understand a fucking thing. He was
I really did like a lot of the movie. I mean, for all the stuff we're talking about with the cliched look of the, they just had to make it too much of a Western with the guys in a duster sitting up there looking like a lone gunslinger. Some of it actually looked cool. I mean, I like the Western aspects that they brought into it. The thing that kind of took me out of it, and it really took me out of it, it's like, man, these vampires. I know that people like to evolve the mythology of the vampire, but and it's been done for years. I mean, shit, we got a black vampire. We got Count Chocula likes to suck chocolate bars.
Hell yeah.
Morgan Freeman was Vincent the vegetable vampire one time.
Yep.
These are the evolutions of vampires.
Yeah. Shit, I lived with a dude who Taco Bell Lugosi. He sucked tacos.
That's right.
It's okay to evolve them, but here these really are not vampires.
No.
They don't really suck blood. They tear their victims apart. They live in a hive where they have a queen.
They have no problem
They're
with
aliens.
religious iconography.
They're
at
aliens.
all.
That's all.
What's that?
They have no problem with religious iconography of any kind.
Right.
No,
Because
no.
they even say it, and they're like, yeah, what are you doing, man?
Well,
The
sun
fucking
still
religious
hurts.
shit doesn't do
Sun
anything.
still hurts.
And the
But-
sun still hurts.
yeah,
but you're
but they're
right.
aliens. They're aliens.
They're
That's all
aliens
they are.
from Alien. They
Yeah.
and even to the point where they go into like a hive and they look at how it's built and it's all fragile and it's made out of this.
Of stuff they secrete.
They say they
Yeah.
secrete this to make their hives. And I was like, Dracula would never rub his ass on something to build his castle. This is just insulting here. But there's a point where
Rob Patterson would, though.
But he would, yeah. He's not gonna rub his ass on anything.
He turned into a disco.
He farts glitter, I built a rainbow, but this right here.
Meanwhile, Hemdahl's like, you get away from that bridge.
Yeah, man. Here they take these vampires in. There is such a thing as removing something so far from its mythology that you ripped everything to where they're just any kind of monster. They're
Yeah.
not vampires. And
Vampires just because the movie says so.
I
pretty
wish
much.
they should have been called mutants in the
Yeah,
movie. or
something.
But
but mutants aren't hot right now. Vampires are hot.
That is true.
But there was something interesting that the main villain reveals
Oh,
about
yeah.
what exactly he is and what's going on. So at that point, I was like, okay, I can buy into this. I mean, because
I felt the
why
same
wouldn't
way.
I otherwise?
I
Yeah.
almost felt like, why didn't they at that point have it where like this was all prehistory? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like, if that was the case and it's like, oh, well, this is actually how vampires came to be as we know them. That would have made sense or felt like, but that's not what this was doing. It was just a big lazy mishmash of genre elements that sometimes were entertaining and sometimes were lame as hell.
I'd say the thought process and the ideas were lazy, but I actually thought the execution was actually pretty interesting. Where it was the one thing where I was like, okay, because I was was expecting really to get annoyed. I was just like, oh man, really? You're just going to rip off everything you've ever liked. You had your checklist of things that you need to pay homage to. But I thought, I was like, okay, I'm immersed in this world. Really, I wish I could see more of the city, be more involved with the city, instead of it turning into a Western where I'm like, every time I see something get turned into a Western, like in a genre like this, I think it's for budgetary reasons more than anything. True. Because it's so cheap to shoot. You know?
And I felt exactly like you did. The only thing that made me, I doubled back on that thought, because I was like, you know what? The little bit they show of that city sucks. I would not want to live there.
When you say it sucks, you mean like the way it looks like, or just the world itself?
No. They did a great job with the look of it.
Yeah, just why would anyone stay there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like look, it's dirty. It's not even all that much better than the wasteland, and you got the clerics just running everything and telling you got to stop and pray.
It was like a shitty version of Mega City 1, so where everything else after that is the cursed earth. You know,
it's Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Stop and pray.
Yeah, there wasn't even like strip joints or something like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to stay there where they're like, oh, there's vice, and so that's why people stay in the city. Like, there's not. You fucking got by gunpoint have to go into a mechanized confession booth once a day.
That is true. Yeah, they force you.
Gotta love the city.
That didn't even think about
Vegas
that.
is great.
That is true. They force you to confess. It's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you confess, dear Father? I got shit to confess. You won't let me do anything. Hey,
I was waiting for Max Headroom to be a priest at the confessional booth.
Shit, I did the same thing I did yesterday. Walk around the city, stopped to pray, and took my ass home. So you wouldn't fuck with me anymore. Went to bed.
Only once.
Okay, I jerked off. But other than that, man, I agree with all of you that there's a lot of good stuff here to enjoy. I guess my criticism comes just from disappointment. I mean, it is a good Western sci-fi monster film that you could, all that kind of stuff. Post-apocalyptic movie but it takes all these great ideas, and when it narrows them down with no real character and none of that good story that they introduced in like segments and bits of information, it really does turn into like an average sci-fi monster Western horror film, and that means it's enjoyable. Just not enough to like give it a great rating, but enough to say, a really good rental. I would watch this like several times at home.
Yeah. And really, like all the negative things that have been said, at least for me, it's like, okay, look, I have to say this just to justify my rating. Just let you know, like, look, I'm aware of what the problems are, but there's so many times I forgave it because I went in with very low expectations and was surprised by how great it looked and just different ways I got into it when I did, which only set me up to be disappointed later when it just kind of fizzled for me. I mean, besides all that other stuff, I can say that I was kind of excited up until a point. I get, movie's only an hour and 20 minutes long, and probably like up until we get everything just right before the 10 minutes leading up to the big sequence, I was starting to doze off. They were talking a lot more, it slowed down. And I was like, man, this is a movie that does not need to slow down. That's the last thing you need to do.
No, that was the biggest problem, was the big 20 minutes or so of like, stop trying to give him a backstory and just kill something.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and they did a good job what they did. And I thought this is a case of a really terrible writer and a director doing so much more with a shitty script that I ever would have thought somebody would have done. I'm right there with you. It's a high rental, maybe almost a low matinee, but yeah, high rental.
I don't like it quite as much as you guys did. I mean, this is one of those films that I felt it is thoroughly mediocre. I mean, in so many ways, I even thought that the direction was mediocre. I mean, may I point out to you the action scene where the female priest throws 2 rocks in the air, and the main priest jumps on those rocks to get to a higher place in midair.
It could happen.
I'm sorry, the bus in Speed looked at it and said, "Yeah, that's not possible."
Oh, but it was okay in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, that was its mythology was different. Thank you very much.
That means real life.
They had magic powers. End of story. But that being said, there's a lot of. I enjoyed playing pick the genre reference, which was just constantly. Every scene had something. You're like, that's from that. That's from that. And it actually turned into kind of fun. And even that thing I was talking about, I laughed out loud and had a feeling of joy about doing it. I was like, that's such bullshit. And then I went, hey, I kind of enjoyed that. But I'm going to give it a rental. But it's this is the kind of movie designed for renting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it kind of sold me on is it's stupid fun. It's stupid fun for stupid geeks that don't mind seeing this kind of shit and aren't going to like be all harsh about it and go,
Don't insult yourself.
Yeah.
But, stupid people, and I love it.
But no, I mean it is fun. But the thing is, like, as far as the action goes, none of it really impressed me. All I kept thinking is, wow, this whole choreography must have been done by the guys who do Underworld, because as cool as they want to be half the time, it's just like, okay, yeah, I can see flying stars in slow motion only so many times before I just don't care anymore. Yeah. And CG, creatures flying around, getting in wrestling matches that I just don't care for either. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like if they end up doing a sequel, which it seems like it's leaving itself open to, it could get more interesting. Because I mean, I did enjoy the world. I did enjoy the world that it was set in, and I was curious to see where else they would go with it. But yeah, Carl Urban was. I actually liked him as little as he did in this film, and Paul Bentley. He's always kind of fun to watch, but you're always thinking, man, dude, just like, I know you got more potential than this. Really, really talk to your agent about, finding you some better shit to do.
That's his thing.
Is
it? He's the God guy who hates God, but he loves God.
The only time he's not playing a God guy is when he's Jarvis, the butler.
Well, his career is going to go the way of Steven Seagal at some point, but you know what? But other than that, yeah, it's a straight up rental for me. So yeah.
No, I agree with you. It is a mediocre movie, and you know what? That's one of the things we didn't even say. Is like it really is CG'd out. Those vampires. I mean, they look like baby rats when they're born.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the action was only really impressive when Maggie Q was the one who was doing it, and her scenes are badass.
Yeah, they are.
There's a whole sequence where she's taking on a group of motorcycle riders while she's just standing there. And I was like, damn, that bitch is hot.
That's where
ass apart.
That's where you kind of go like, where's her movie at? Like if this movie was about her, it would outdo Underworld. I think
the sequel is Priestess.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Oh, but you know what? Just thinking about those creatures though, those vampire creatures though, it just hit me what those things were reminding me, because I'm like, I've seen these same exact creatures, the demons from Constantine.
They do look like that. They're slimy. They have no eyes.
The way they move and everything. I know. Constantine, out of all things. Yeah.
And as a monster and as a creature feature, I would have been all right with that. Even as CG'd out as they were.
I didn't mind.
Call them vampires. That got to me a little bit. Let's get back to straight up pimping with vampires, man. That's all
Can you imagine this where it was like pimping vampires though? Like replace all the CG ones. The guys are going blah.
Look, man. Next time they just need to put one of those vampires in goddamn hammer pants, and I'll be fine. All right.
The budget wasn't enough for all those spats they would have needed for the
CG spats. It's okay. You can have CG spats.
Oh yeah, no, that would have been a whole different city. I tell you that much. Would have been a hole on every corner. You were required to get a hole every day.
Now see, that city I'd stay at.
Yeah. Father, forgive me, for I have sinned. I did not get a hole today.
The citizens have complete faith in the church's ability to keep them safe.
Whatever you hear, don't scream.
How good is that faith when it's a lie? You have no idea what's coming, priest.